You could find the latest poll.
I'm steady because I try to book.
6 months from Election Day.
You know, politics, Joe Biden.
Or try to book a chair with Richard Armstead.
You know, what is Donald Trump offering?
And just listen to Milwaukee voters.
I'm decided right now. I'm not sure actually if I'm gonna actually vote or not.
Like Naomi Giles, who hasn't voted since 2012, when she cast her ballot for Barack Obama. Or Clee Crapes, who's wholeheartedly undecided, both part of the powerful and coveted black vote in Milwaukee.
Do you know who your pick is at this point?
I honestly don't know. I didn't like hearing the current president now say that, you know, if you're not black if you don't vote Democrat. You know, I thought that was a load of BS. I thought that was an insult. You know, but I also don't like, you know, all of the, you know, drama surrounding, you know, Donald Trump.
Do you see part of your job between now and November is convincing people to vote?
Yes. It's really demanding out there. It's got our work cut out.
Multiple times a week,
he would always say, Angela, I know who got me elected. And I would say, and don't you forget it.
Organizers with black leaders organizing for communities known as Block mobilize into Milwaukee's North Side neighborhoods.
Keep them informed about anything, local elections, any event that's going on, or any community meeting we're trying to have.
Well aware of the latest polling showing just 37% of black voters in Wisconsin say they're very enthusiastic about November's presidential election.
So you think that's probably someone who may not vote?
And no matter how much I tried to talk to her, because I didn't talk to her before, that's why she said, I know you. And I'm like, yeah. So it's like, I keep coming, but you keep telling me the same thing, so I'm not gonna force you.
Is that one of your biggest challenges when you're out here?
Yes, because it's like, you tell me your issues and you talk about your issues, but you can't do nothing if you don't want to take action and like how you think it's gonna change. Like your one vote might be the reason why nothing is changing.
The strategy this day near 40th and Capitol.
What are some issues in your community that you would like to see it changing?
Is part of a year-round effort, first targeting the most basic needs.
Better policing, investment in security in the neighborhoods.
Part community change, part community organizing, where just 14% of Wisconsin's black voters say the economy is excellent or good.
I mean, look, whoever wins Wisconsin will become president of the United States. You win Wisconsin, you become president. And winning Wisconsin means the turnout in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson, County Executive David Crowley.
Why isn't this resonating now? Why do you have more work to do?
People are still struggling. People are still looking to get the things that they need. And we know that we have a president that's looking to invest in them. But I think that as we continue to move forward, you know, people are going to understand that this presidential election is going to be extremely important.
Turnout in Milwaukee's majority black wards surged in 2012 to an unprecedented 77%, according to a Marquette Law School analysis, when former President Obama was seeking re-election. But then it dramatically dropped. Milwaukee's black voter turnout falling 3 times faster than white voters in 2016 to 61% when Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were on the ballot, and dropping even more to 58% in 2020.
Do you see it as a big threat that people will just stay home in November?
I think what I think about is that if we're still having the same type of conversation around Labor Day, then I think that is a problem. But if that switch doesn't happen and that enthusiasm gap isn't kind of made up probably around like Labor Day or so, then I think folks are in trouble.
Democrats.
Yeah. Democrats, I think Democrats would be in trouble.
And Republicans are looking to capitalize.
We want to target our areas. We want to see what we can get out of it.
Preparing to mobilize their own field group under the GOP field office at MLK and North.
I don't know. I think a lot of the people on the block like Trump. They like him a lot. A lot of men. A lot of men like Trump.
Despite President Biden winning Milwaukee's black vote by some 81% in 2020, the margins for Democrats have seen a slight decline over the past decade.
We have some of the best, I would say, the best street team to go out and do doors in the city. These are young black people who have made their own conscious decision to say, I'm going to support this movement.
There are some black Democratic voters who are highly skeptical of Republicans, that you're just coming into the city to disenfranchise their vote. Are those concerns legitimate from them?
I think it's another play to control people. They want to control the black vote as if it's theirs and no one else's, instead of letting black people arrive at their own conclusion.
Tonight, we've learned President Biden will hold a campaign event in Racine tomorrow specifically focused on speaking with black voters. And Vice President Kamala Harris will be in Milwaukee again next week, focused in part on black-owned small businesses. Deanna, a nod to everything we just heard.
Now, Matt, we heard about this, but how does the thought of a Trump-Biden rematch play into this lack of enthusiasm?
It is a huge part, and especially the Trump factor on both sides. Sunday morning, our exclusive reporting continues. The new promise from the mayor on what he won't let voters forget.